Okay. So with charitable downsizing, the things that are the most important, or just with downsizing in general, things that are most important to remember are um, that number one, if you haven't used it in a certain period of time, and you can create those parameters for yourself, time is a really big part of it. If it's something that you haven't used or you won't use for a certain period of time, create that boundary and then take those things and decide to remove them. Set them aside, put them in a box, and then make some decisions about them. And it's hard because this is decision making. This is a lot of decision making. This is looking at all the things we have, right? And saying, okay. But time is something that we don't get more of, right? We have to be judicious about how we spend our time in our life. If we have things we want to do or accomplish or whatever, all the things we possess take time. They steal little bits of time here and there because you got to move around the house. You got to store things, you got, etc. So anytime you buy something, it steals a little bit of your time. And anytime that, you got to deal with it in your home and in your space, it steals that little bit of your time. And that adds up when we have a lot more things that we haven't made those decisions about. So decision making is really a key part. And think of it in terms of one way is to think of it in terms of time. Buying back a little bit more of my time, things I don't have to shuffle around, things I don't have to store. And then, of course, after time is space, speaking of storage. So a lot of times in your home, you have a certain number of storage closets, a certain number of storage spaces that you can use. Or sometimes people will use like a spare bedroom if they have an apartment and they've got one that's like their office/craft room, right? So if that's the case, it's a matter of looking at that room a little bit differently than what it was originally purposed for, because maybe it was meant to be somebody's bedroom or an office or something like that. And there's things you can do to retool the space to make it work better for you. Like a lot of clients that have craft rooms that were once bedrooms, they will like to take a closet door off and they will put shelving into that closet space and make that extra shelving to store items. But they keep it open because when they're working in there, they want to be able to access those things. Or sometimes they'll do a little curtain and curtain off an area. The other thing you can do is consider, I am not a big fan of plastic storage bins, but if it's something you're going to use for the long term and you want to keep it nice, then I would say go through it first and reduce the things that you're not going to keep. Don't buy containers for things you're not going to keep. And then second stage is figure out the best way you can sort those items without buying a ton of containers. I at least try to minimize the amount of containers I use. And part of that is just sustainability. That's sort of my way of being, because I prefer those things don't degrade. They don't, break down in landfill. Now, if you can do little wooden crates, things like that, those are obviously more sustainable materials. Those are things that keep. And some things like balls of yarn, whatever, you could put into something like that. And it would be a little more sustainable product to use. And that's, like I said, I'm coming from more a place of, I'm not a huge fan of plastic unless it's something you have to keep forever. Like if it's documents and things like that are for the family or whatever, you don't want any dampness to get on them, obviously plastic, right? I mean, there's not a lot of options other than that. So when you're going through, there's time and then there's space considerations. And then the other thing, again, is can someone else use this? So my third little pass through a space will usually be, well, is there anyone else in your family, in your craft group or whatever, that you might be able to just move some of that along to, that they would get use out of it, that would make you happy to see them enjoy it. So so that's the third pass, is like, how can I share in a meaningful way with somebody that I know? And then the final pass is, what can I share with someone maybe that I don't know that might have a need? So that's my sort of steps as I go through the purging and the clearing of a space. And so there's a lot of thought and decision making. Now, in terms of the process of that, one of the things I like to recommend is when you enter that space, it's tricky because you start moving things to other places and then those places get messed up, but you got to work through it in a process. So my process has always been, pick that room that's your biggest pain point. When you enter the room, decide if you're going to go clockwise or counterclockwise in the space, but you start to your right or your left and you stick to that and you work through the space going around, okay, in the room. And as you sort things and as you move things and as you gather things, you can use a little banker's box. You can use some containers you might have around the house, shoe boxes even, just cut the lids off or whatever and use those and sort into some little containers you have around the house. Start grouping the items as you go around and you work through that circumference. But that process works really, really well. You don't leave the space you're in. Even if you walk to put something somewhere else, that's fine. Come right back. Don't go to the other space and start working on that. Because if you follow that, you know where you left off. Let's say you only have an hour. You work so far along. Okay, this is where I stopped. It gives you an endpoint and a place to go back to when you're ready to re-enter, and you're not going all over. Now, it's going to mess up some other spots in your house a little bit, right? But that's a process too. So just if the item goes somewhere else, if it lives someplace else, this isn't the room for it, maybe just make one box for now that says doesn't live here. And that box is going to get sorted later, right? But you can set it in a corner of that room and just be like, this doesn't live in this room right now. Okay. So then it doesn't tease you and move you away from the space. So that's usually how I recommend people work through a space, and being very, sort of like time and place oriented as they go through, starting at one side and working their way around. Now, once you've gone through and you sorted things out a little bit and you see what you have in there, you've got to look at the room and you've got to decide, okay, do all of these things need to live here? Or can this room only be X, Y, and Z? And if that's the case, these other things are all going to leave. And I'm only going to have these certain things in this room. And that way, first of all, that'll lighten the load in there. It makes you have to make decisions about the things that don't fit the purpose of the room, but it reduces greatly what you're working with. And once you've done that sort and decision making, then you can decide where you want to put it in the room. Do you want to get a new little shelf unit? Do you want to have someone come and put some little shelves into a closet instead of having it be all hanging for clothes? Sometimes if it's a craft room, you just need shelves, or maybe it's just half the closet is shelves and you have a little rod for a few hanging things that, are just extra on the side. That's fine too. You can have multiple purposes. So that's the kind of thing that I do when I'm working through a space and working through a room. Now, not everybody enjoys this. Not everybody finds this fun. So there's ways to make it fun. Like, for example, put on your favorite music, put on some Eminem, whatever, but it's got to be upbeat. It's got to be fun for you. It's got to be something that's like motivational, right? Kind of like workout music or something that gets you going. And we have to play with our own emotions and our own way of being in the moment, right? Because this is a drudgery task. Nobody loves doing this, but yeah, exactly. So try to add some things that are fun, and do a reward. Like at the end of, say, I'm going to do this for 2 hours. At the end of 2 hours, I'm going to go do something I really like I'm going to take a walk, or I'm going to go for ice cream, or I'm going to go whatever. If you're working on kids' rooms too, that's always a good one. If you guys will help me for 1 hour, we'll go to the dollar store and you can pick something, or, whatever the case may be. Try not to add clutter, but with kids, that's hard. They like the toys. But that kind of thing, rewards are great. And if you know yourself well enough to know what will make you happy and what will reward you at the end of that, then do it. Give yourself, that pat on the back and that reward that you did it. And the other part of it is like join a community. And I'm not saying this for selfish reasons with Love Bigger. I'm just saying like being in a community where people are talking about that. There's a ton of groups online that talk about, downsizing, organizing. Get in there and ask your questions. Like, I really don't know what to do with this. What do you guys think? We're going to have a lot of that with our Love Bigger community, but there's plenty of places out there too. And I don't want to say we're the only place to get those answers, but there's a lot of people talking about it and what they can do. And I have, if anyone wants a list of some of those great communities, I have that as well. So what other questions can I answer for you to help you out, Victoria? What would serve you, and how can I help you with your project? Oh, we got to unmute you. Andrea, can you unmute her? Oh, there she is. You're on. Okay.
Yeah. Like you said about doing a room,
yeah,
and going through everything, that's kind of hard for me. I have done some things. I've donated some of my hats to a charity.
Great.
And so I have been doing things to get some of that down. I gave some of my things to my sister. She wanted some of my stuff that I made, so I gave like 10 bags to her so she can donate it to people where she is. So I have been downsizing.
That's a great solution. Yeah, and you can enlist a friend like that or a family member that might have some charities that they know of in their area. If you've got a bunch of things you've made and you've exhausted the couple of places that you might take them, there's always people in your life, right, that know of a situation or or might hear about something. So ask around. You can use your social
Right.
media too. You could post it on your own social media and say, "Hey, I've got these great hats. Does anybody know who might be able to use them?" I bet you any money you get responses real quick. Yeah.
I did. I found that charity on Facebook, matter of fact,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
needed hat donations because they didn't have any
Nice.
to, give out to, homeless and everybody else. And I'm like, look, if you could
Yeah.
come pick these hats, I will
Yeah.
gladly give them to you. You can take them.
Yeah.
And they
Yeah.
ended up with 165 hats.
Oh my gosh, you're not kidding. You do a lot of them. That's great
No,
though.
I crochet every day. So I have a
Wow.
lot of things. So
That's great. That's so cool. So yeah, so with crafts, I mean, that's one of the things. And thankfully, I mean, with the internet now, it gives us so many cool options on how we can share those things, which is terrific. And some people aren't a big fan of like Facebook Marketplace, but you could always,
yeah.
sell them in little batches or something if you wanted to and just ship them off to people. I used to use eBay a lot more than I do now, but there's places like that where you could list them or Etsy is probably a great place for you to do it and just put some of them on there if you want to sell some. And you can even do some of the profits to charity if you want to, which is really cool. Like you can ask X amount for 5 hats and then 25% goes to the charity of your choice. And
Mhm.
do that kind of thing. So you cover your shipping, obviously, and your cost of materials and whatnot, and then
Mhm.
decide what you can support with the extra because obviously that's a great way to do it too. They can't use the hats, but they can use the money from the sale of the hats, right? So there's a lot of creative solutions, which I think is so much fun. So don't forget to like think outside the box. Don't forget to take a look at what other people are doing online. Don't hesitate to steal an idea if somebody has found a great way to do that and jump on. There's probably some things on TikTok too and Pinterest. Pinterest is another great one for ideas and solutions. I don't know how much time you spent on there. I have some friends that are very active on Pinterest, and they find that they get a really good response there in terms of people responding, even maybe more so than Etsy if they're doing something regularly and they're active on it and they post a lot. So just as a side note, what other sorts of things do you need help with finding homes for? What are you running into that gives you a problem?
Well, I've been through all my yarn stash,
Okay.
and I have given away some yarn because I'm part of a knit and crochet group. So I have
Yeah.
been spreading extra yarn around for some of my members that have like kids. They teach the crochet, so I've been giving
Right.
yarn away to them so the kids could have something to crochet and learn how to do that stuff with.
Right.
So I still have some bags left that I have. A couple of my members are coming to get the rest of that. So
That's
it's
excellent. Yeah, I mean, and if it can help kids learn, because honestly, those tasks that you have to focus and not on a screen are huge,
yes.
to really help kids learn and the hand-eye coordination, because they're finding in a lot of studies that kids that do a lot of video games and stuff, their hand-eye coordination is really off because when they do something really small on the screen, it's really big. And so they just don't
Mhm.
have like the depth perception and the skills. So what you're doing by donating those tools for them to learn a fine motor skill like that
Mhm.
is really invaluable to them in the long term. And we won't even know, I mean, honestly, but it's making a huge difference, even bigger than you might think. So I think I congratulate you on that and for finding a great way to offload some of it, right? That's creativity at work.
Yes, it was hard to do because it's just you get attached to things and
Right.
you don't want to let go of it and you might want to use it later but you never know but you might not so that's the thing I have a hard time with because it's a
Yeah.
struggle like do I really want to keep this, do I really need this, I
Yeah.
really want to keep that but I don't really need this but maybe I'll need it later, so this is the struggle I go through so with things
So
sometimes.
a couple of ways that you can look at it. There's a couple different trains of thought. The minimalists, they have a podcast. There are a couple of guys that have been doing this for a number of years. They say that if it's something you can get for $15 or less or within 15 minutes, then you can let it go because it's easy enough for you to get it again, right? It's their 15-15 rule. That's what they call it. So
Okay.
if you can rebuy it in 15 minutes or less, $15 or less, really honestly, you can just let it go. Get it, find it at home, and you'll be okay. You'll get it back, right? Because it's negligible. It's a small amount. You can recreate that for yourself if you need it.
Yeah.
And the second thing that you can do about letting go is just thinking about, well, there's a few things, but first thing that comes to mind is like that higher purpose, that higher and better purpose for it.
Mhm.
If you give yourself a space constraint, and let's say in that space, if I have this box and this is where my extra yarn can live, because this is how much space I have in my house, I can designate this. So if it doesn't fit in that space, you got to make a choice for it. And what's the highest and best use it can go to? And I think you found a great one with the teaching the kids, right?
Yeah.
So any other items like that, it's the same thing. What's the highest and best use this thing could go to that I can't fit in this space that I've allotted myself? Okay. So then it's getting creative, Googling, what kinds of charities accept this, or, coming on the app and asking, you can post it and they hopefully will just say, hey, we'd like that for X and such. Sometimes it's something you've never thought of. So, or in a Facebook group or whatever, you can do it any
Mm.
number of ways. But just, give yourself that space constraint, limit it. And then when you reach the limit, it's like, well, one in, one out, right? I can pick something else to take out of there if I really want to keep this one, but where is that going to go? And then having a little fun with the
Yeah.
solution for it. So, okay, well, great. Is there any other questions for me?
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay. Well, listen, if there's something we can help you with, I don't know, are you in the Detroit area or are you outside of
Yeah.
Detroit? Oh, okay,
Yeah.
great. If there's something we can help you with on site, don't hesitate to reach out. You can just reach me at jen@lovebigger.com. That's my email address. So please feel free. Or if you say, I've got this thing, I'm looking for a solution for it, I'm always happy to do a little research of my own because I've got quite a deep bench of people that have solved these sorts of problems with me in the past. So,
Okay.
so yeah, don't hesitate, Victoria, to just like reach out, ask. I don't charge to answer any kind of questions like that. That's just something I do. And I don't charge for delivering to charities either. So if it's
Okay.
something I'm in the area and I can pick it up and take it and drop it off somewhere, I will do that. I'm happy to do that.
Oh, thank you. That would be a great help. That's another thing because I don't get around too well
Yeah,
and I
yeah,
don't drive. So
yeah.
I'm partially disabled. So
Okay.
let's just say I don't get a chance to get around to do certain things. So
Yeah. So if there is a situation where you need to pick up and you don't have a resource, let me know. We can try to get that arranged for you. So we try to help as best we can. Eventually, with the app, we're going to add like a transportation partner that'll actually come and do the pickups and drop offs. But I do have some that I work with anyway.
okay.
So if it's not me, I can get one of them, if they're passing by on a given day, I'll get a pickup accomplished. So
Oh, okay. I will definitely download the app. I
yeah,
would
yeah.
definitely use that.
Yeah, and on the contact us page on the website too, you can send a message. So there's lots of ways to reach me, and I'm always around. And myself or my team, someone will get back with you right away. Um,
Okay.
we're on top of that. So yeah, thank you. I appreciate you coming out and spending some
Sure.
time, and I'm happy to know you. And it sounds like you're doing some great work with all of your hats and supporting some really great organizations and keeping people warm this winter. So kudos to you for that.
Thank you. I'm doing my best.
Yeah, yeah, excellent.